Number 1. Between a Rock and a Hard Place. On the 26th of April 2003, Aaron Ralston found out the hard way that nature can throw curveballs at any given time. Ralston was hiking alone as normal in the Blue John Canyon, Utah, and during a descent of a narrow chasm, a boulder landed on his arm, pinning him to the wall. 5 days in, and the stricken adventurer brandished his now blunt penknife from his pocket and began the excruciating effort of cutting off his own arm and making a tourniquet from a pair of biking shorts. He was later found and whisked away to hospital. The event would inspire the film 127 Hours. Number 2. The Real Revenant. Hugh Glass was a mountain man and fur trapper and signed up for what he thought was just going to be another expedition to the Rockies. After leaving St. Louis in March 1823, he was attacked by a bear. After an almighty struggle, the mountain man somehow managed to take down the beast, but only after seriously injuring himself in the process. With a broken leg, ripped scalp and a punctured throat, the expedition decided to press on without him. Alone, he began a grueling 300 to 480 kilometre journey to safety at Fort Kiowa. Riddled with fever and barely lasting on a diet of roots and berries, the warrior like Glass dragged his wasted body to Kiowa after an excruciating few months. Number 3. The Lusitania passenger who was presumed dead. 1,198 of the 1,959 people on board the RMS Lusitania perished in the chilly seas of the Atlantic barely 3 years after the Titanic disaster. One person to escape the clutches of the ocean was the 27-year-old Nettie Moreau. After witnessing her husband and baby son die in the water, she was hauled onto a small minesweeper craft. Taken to the nearby port of Cobb, she was discovered by her brother John on the quayside amongst a pile of corpses. He successfully resuscitated her, and if it wasn't for the timely intervention, she most likely would not have survived the terrible ordeal. Number 4. If you can't beat them, join them. Jack Renton was an able seaman from the Orkney Islands and was shanghaied in 1868 in San Francisco. After escaping, he spent 40 days drifting in the open water in a small craft until eventually reaching the Solomon Islands. Captured, stripped naked, and brought before a local chief, he was initially kept just for novelty value, but proved himself to the islanders by killing without fear and taking heads as prizes. Renton's stay in the Solomon Islands was for 8 years, and eventually he hitched a ride on a passing ship and returned home a celebrity, with his trusty spear and a necklace of 64 human teeth. Number 5. Cannibalism off the Cape of Good Hope. 5th of July 1885, and the crew of the yacht Mignonette had been cast away in a violent storm 1,600 miles off the southern tip of Africa. The 4 men, Captain Thomas Dudley, Edwin Stevens, Richard Parker and Edmund Brooks, had no water and quenched their thirst by drinking their own urine. 2 weeks in, and the chances of salvation were getting slim. After Parker fell ill, he was stabbed in the neck and the other 3 men fed on his body, allowing them to last out until a passing ship saved them. After discovering what had happened, the rescuers took them back to England for trial. Number 6. The Real Robinson Crusoe. Fleeing his homeland right after a family fight, Alexander Selkirk began a life on the high seas. Finding life on a boat too violent, Selkirk demanded to be dropped off at the next island, Macetiera, a desolate place 644 kilometers off the coast of Chile. As it became obvious that rescue was not forthcoming, he resigned himself to a long stay. Rescue would come 4 years and 4 months later, when 2 British privateers arrived after being alerted by a signal fire. The astonished soldiers picked up a goatskin-dressed Selkirk, who went on to influence Daniel Defoe's famous novel. Number 7. Trapped in ice with nowhere to go. A long-time mariner, Ernie Shackleton ventured into the South Pole in 1915, 3 years after Robert Falcon Scott's fateful expedition. The sub-zero temperatures meant his ship, Endurance, soon became trapped in the ice, and after 10 months it sank. Now living on an ice floe, they set off in 3 life rafts and reached Elephant Island. It was here that Shackleton decided to split the men, taking 6 with him on a 1,300 kilometre journey across the sea to South Georgia, and with finally taking refuge in a whaling station. Shortly after, they would return for the remaining men, and Shackleton would later circumnavigate the continent. Number 8. The Chicken Who Refused to Give In. The survival of Mike the Chicken, despite having his head whipped clean off, still continues to amaze. When farmer Lloyd Olson swung his axe to kill, somehow the blade did not completely sever the jugular vein. A few days later, it became clear this animal wasn't giving up the fight just yet, and Olson and his wife continued to feed and water him using a pipette. It turned out that the brainstem had remained, so Mike was still acting the same way as a brain-dead human could, and could still carry out the most basic functions. Mike lived for another 18 months and became a minor celebrity in the process. And there you have it, 8 stories of survival against the odds. Are there any that we missed out? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.